So here we are, ready to start now. If you look on this reed here, you can see that every second dent, so every second space, has a bit of solder there. And this means that if you try and pull all the yarn up, every second one gets stuck, and the rest can go past it. And this can create a gap. And similarly, if you pull it down, you'll get this gap again. So this is what we use to put in our lease band, and the lease band is there so that you keep the correct order of yarn for tying in and putting onto the loom. So I'll just set this up and you can see how I do that. So I should have shown this. There's a bar that normally sits like there. I've moved it round. If I take the yarn, pull it taut, and then separate the ones that can only come up so far with the ones that can come up all the way, like this. If you then take this all the way forward, there's a gap there, and I have a wee thing that I just put in to hold it, and then you turn that round to do the same again, but going down the way this time. So what was up before is now down, and you do the same thing, create that gap, and just make sure that you haven't missed any or none are caught. Pull it up to separate, and again. Pull it through. So you can see that, well, I hope you can see, there's another gap there, so take the other end and just thread it through. Pull that back up to normal, and then if we move this up, now here's that mini lease, and it's worth noting there's lots of different ways to do this. Some people put the lease band in now, some will always keep it as a mini one. They would tie that up and each section would have its own lease band. I'm going to transfer this to a bigger lease band. Some people do it when they're taking it off the warping mill. There's many different ways to do it, but if you see, this one is over the bottom and under the top one, and then the next one is under the bottom one. If I can just separate this out. So that one's under the bottom, over the top, and then the next one will be over the bottom, under the top, and so on. And it means that when you're tying in, if you try and pull out one here, if it got tangled at the top, it wouldn't come out past those ones, so you can see then the order that you're in. And then for putting in, transferring to the bigger lease, all I do is move this up, and this is my bigger lease band. There's two bits there, and that'll go all the way across the warp. And that then looks something like that. Now, before we start warping, we need to make sure this is set to 0, and it was before I moved it slightly. And this will count the yardage that you're putting on the wheel. So for this tweed, we're only wanting 24 yards, so it won't be too long before we have to move everything again. Now normally, when you're looking at that creel, what you have set up there is what you would keep for the whole warp, for every section that you're doing. But this one is slightly different in that the pattern repeat is greater than the number of cones I have there. So at the end of every section, or just before the end of every section, we're going to have to move all of them around.